Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with guns, gun culture, politics, current events, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And as you can see, I already have a firearm out here for this poll question of the week, and this is one of my two AR-15 pistols that I built. I built this from a stripped lower receiver. And even though the barrel on this AR-15, which by the way is chambered in 9mm, is less than 16 inches, it's not a short-barreled rifle because I have attached a pistol stabilizing brace to this particular firearm. So this is not designed as a stock. Even if I shoulder it, it still is not a stock, and this still legally is a pistol here in the US. Now, of course, the ATF wants to redefine things. They want to change things, even though tens of millions have been sold of these particular pistol braces, and the ATF for years has said they are completely legal. So now the question is, what is the ATF going to do if they define this as a short-barreled rifle? Well, based off of leaked internal memos, it looks like they're going to do an NFA amnesty, essentially saying if you own one of these and it meets certain criteria, you will be able to legally register them with the NFA without having to pay the $200 tax stamp. Now, there's a whole bunch of issues that arise from this. So, for example, what if you own one of these AR-15 or AK-47 pistols in a state where NFA items are not allowed? Well, if you're forced to register them, now your gun is illegal. Well, I think that definitely has to be addressed. And we also have to address the fact that the NFA branch is really slow right now, just trying to process the basic Form 1s and Form 4s that come in and trickle in every single day. I think there's a couple thousand that they get every single day. What are they going to do when there's tens of millions? Their current e-form system appears to be run by a hamster on a little running wheel. It runs really slow, it doesn't run fast, it's full of glitches, and as I said, they're really slow at processing forms. So what's going to happen when a massive number of these forms come in? And it appears that they're going to change the Form 1s, where now you're going to be required to send in pictures of the particular firearm that you are trying to register. Now, I am hearing a whole bunch of different rumors and even lawyers talking about what's going on. Is this a trap? Some people are saying don't do it. Some people say just remove the brace completely. Some people are saying I'm not going to register them at all and I'm just going to play stupid. Well, what do I think? And more importantly, what do you guys think? Well, based off this potential upcoming amnesty, that's what I formulated in this week's question. So with all that said, let's read the question and let's get your results. This week's question deals with more what-ifs in politics. In the past week, we have heard leaked rumors that the ATF will be having an amnesty for braced pistols like AR-15s and AK-47 style firearms to be added to the NFA. There are some that are excited about a free tax stamp, and others warning it is a trap and just an unconstitutional registry in the end. How do you feel about this? If you, or in the hypothetical you did, own one of these pistols, will or would you register it in the amnesty, and why or why not? So I think it's important to note that I put in the hypothetical in there as well, because inevitably every time I ask one of these questions, I always get in the comments, "Nice try, ATF." Usually it's people that aren't even subscribers to my channel and think somehow I'm some type of covert ATF agent trying to get you to admit that you own a braced pistol and you're not going to register it. We're going to come raid your house. Whatever. I guess you just never seen my channel. But so I put the hypothetical in there just so you have your out. You can say, I don't own one of these, but if I did, this is what I would do. Now, I see the whole spectrum in the firearms community. I see people like myself that already own a bunch of tax stamps. I have a bunch of silencers and I've registered a bunch of short-barreled rifles. I understand the system, and I also see the incompetence of the ATF. I also see other people out there that are on the other side that say, I will never register anything whatsoever. And I totally get that and respect that as well. But I also try to look at this through the lens of history. There have been other amnesties in the past when it came to machine guns or AOWs like the street sweeper shotgun. I think it was back in the 90s or the 80s. I'd have to look that up. But I know they had an amnesty for that. And none of those amnesties really had any issue. None of them were used as gotchas. None of them were used as traps. Now, whether or not you agree with the NFA, which by the way, I don't agree with the NFA, but I remain in compliance. And I try to help you all remain in compliance if that is what you feel you legally should do in your situation. However, I respect your decision to make these choices on your own. If you want to register something, great. If you don't, don't. If you don't want to follow the law, that is up to you. All I say is know what those ramifications of those decisions might be. This also brings up a whole bunch of other questions. So for example, what if you own one of these AR-15 pistols and you live in a state where NFA items are illegal and you're forced to register it now as a short-barreled rifle? Well, that's not right. There needs to be some type of mechanism. You bought or built one of these and were in full compliance of the law when you did. And now they're saying you're a felon. So I think that definitely needs to be addressed. Also, what is the NFA branch of the ATF going to do when tens of millions of these forms start pouring in for this amnesty? They can't handle the workload that they have now. It takes them between 6 months and a year to process a Form 1 or a Form 4 when only a couple thousand are trickling in each day versus tens of millions. So there are many questions that are having to be asked, and not everything is set in stone. So for example, what if this gets amnesty registered as a short-barreled rifle? Will I be allowed to take off this brace and put on a stock? Because after all, now it's a short-barreled rifle, it can have a stock. Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. And I really think it depends on what you think is going to happen. I've seen lawyers say one or the other. I can tell you from my perspective and my knowledge of the National Firearms Act that once you register a firearm as a short-barreled rifle, you can change that configuration. The most important thing is that receiver was registered. The ATF likes you to tell them, hey, I changed the barrel length, I changed the caliber of this particular gun, but that's all that you really have to do. And I don't think in every circumstance you even have to tell them that. So if this gets amnesty registered as a short-barreled rifle, I think you're going to be able to put a stock on this. But then the ATF is saying, well, with the new Form 1s with this amnesty, you're going to have to submit a picture to prove that it has a brace on it. Well, if people are just going to take the brace off and put a stock, why does it matter? So many questions. I think they're going to be answered a certain way, but who knows, I could be wrong. There's so many what ifs in this scenario. So I understand people's hesitancy in either answering it one way or the other. But this is just kind of a general what if scenario based on the information that you have right now. So with all of that said, let's see what you guys said with this week's results. With only 565 votes as of me filming this video, a very low number, probably because people are scared that they're going to be outed by me to the ATF or something, we have, yes, I have other tax stamps and want to throw a stock on these, 14%. Yes, I want to remain in compliance, 6%. No, I do not own one or live in a state where SBRs are illegal, 10%. No, I will never register anything and will just remove the brace, 42%. And something else, all tax stamps are free if you have the courage, 28%. Now I know I was a little funny with that last answer, but maybe there is something else that people are going to do. And it's the same thing for maybe you're not going to register your pistol because you think it's unconstitutional and you are going to keep the brace on there. After all, as I said, the ATF is a pretty incompetent agency. They only have about 5,000 agents to enforce all of these laws. And when it comes to tens of millions of these guns, on top of all of their other duties and investigations, there is no way that they can keep up with this. I have personally known people that have sawed off the barrels of shotguns without even knowing the legal ramifications of the National Firearms Act. They had never even heard of it. I've seen pictures online of people having braced pistols with vertical foregrips, not knowing what the law is. And really, for someone like myself that follows this stuff, I really don't see people that are not in compliance with the NFA and they're ignorant of the law getting prosecuted with any of these crimes. This is one of those things where, yeah, people know about it, but voluntary compliance kind of keeps things in order, whether you think that is good or bad. But these results really did kind of surprise me. I kind of thought more people were going to take the government up on their free tax stamp. After all, if I could register this as an SBR, and this isn't even a great gun, this is just built off of an Anderson lower receiver, a poverty pony that sometimes people call it, with a kind of a cheap 9mm barrel, cheap 9mm handguard, a pistol brace. There's nothing really special about this gun. I just kind of threw this together to have an AR-15 chambered at 9mm as a pistol, as kind of a range toy. I really have no desire to SBR it and spend that money. But if they're going to give me a free tax stamp, I think that's great. I also understand that I live in Texas, a state that is gigantic, and I can travel all over the state if this was an SBR. However, if you live in a smaller state and you have to cross state lines, well, you can no longer do that with an SBR, but you can a pistol. There's so many legal issues that really have to be addressed. And I honestly think there is a bright side on this. Number one, it will make more people aware of the unconstitutionality of the NFA. People going through all the trouble of amnesty registering these guns and then filling out all the paperwork just to cross state lines. That might make a lot of people go, this is wrong. Let's contact our legislators. And it puts a huge spotlight on the NFA, and who knows, maybe we can get it repealed, either through the legislature or through the court system. It might be a really good thing in the long run, because one of the reasons the NFA is able to remain is because so few people today really know about it and understand it. But if more people did, I actually think it could turn the tide in our favor of getting these stupid laws repealed. But let's go ahead and break down each one of these, and I'll tell you guys my personal thoughts and opinions. First, we have, yes, I have other tax stamps and I want to throw a stock on these. Now, that is assuming you'll be able to do that. Now, I think you will, because if these are registered as short-barreled rifles, they're not going to be short-barreled rifles originally registered as pistols. No, they're not going to do that. It's just a short-barreled rifle. You'll be able to change the caliber. You'll be able to change the barrel length. You'll be able to change the stock. That is my personal opinion. Would I like to throw a real stock on this? Absolutely. And if I don't have to pay the $200, I'm definitely going to go down that route. And I was kind of surprised that this didn't get more votes. After all, I know there's a lot of people out there that own brace pistols but also own NFA items, so they're already aware of all the process and the paperwork and really aren't bugged by it. I kind of thought the ability of a free tax stamp would kind of be inviting, but for them, I guess it's not, only 14%. Then we have, yes, I want to remain in compliance, 6%. Now, I did know some people were going to go this way, and I kind of feel like they feel like I do about the NFA. I don't like the NFA. I think it's unconstitutional, and I rally people against the NFA. However, I follow the law, and I recommend you do too if you want to have a fun and cool gun like an SBR or a machine gun or a silencer. But that doesn't mean you can't still fight to have the law repealed. You can contact your legislators. You can donate to pro-gun groups that are fighting these laws in the courts and get the law overturned. But in the moment, you are in compliance, so you don't have to worry about any legal ramifications. Then we have, no, I do not own one or live in a state where SBRs are illegal. And this is one of those big issues that I think is going to have to be ironed out that maybe the ATF has not thought about. Now, I do know there are some states where guns like this are completely legal, but if you put a stock on it and try to register it as an SBR, you can't, because they don't allow NFA items. And that doesn't make any logical sense at all. But what are those people going to do? Are they just going to take off the brace? Well, that is a possibility, but I don't know. There should be a mechanism in place for those people that built or bought these guns legally to not have to destroy their own property and legally register them if that's what they want to do. I don't think the ATF has really thought about this, especially when it comes to the ramifications of state law enforcement as well. But I understand a lot of people are going to be very apprehensive about registering a gun like this, especially if they live in an anti-gun state and they don't want that state to know what they have. So I totally get that as well. Then we have, no, I will never register anything, and I will just remove the brace, 42%. Now, this getting the majority doesn't really surprise me, but it was the overwhelming majority. Now, I understand that a lot of people want to put a big middle finger towards the ATF. I'm one of those people too. But as I said, I remain in compliance. I don't have to support or condone what they do. I don't have to like the law, but I can fight to have that law repealed. I can contact my legislators, and I can donate to pro-gun groups that are trying to fight the ATF in court. That's the way we do it in a civil society. I really think that a lot of people could potentially run afoul of the law and become felons inadvertently by having a gun like this, not registering it. And let's just say right now with the Biden administration and their big enforcement on gun laws and gun control, well, what's going to stop them from sending undercover ATF agents out to your local range and seeing who has one of these? And as an ATF agent, they are legally allowed to ask you for your paperwork. A law enforcement officer like your police or state trooper cannot, but because an NFA item is registered and you have to pay a tax for it, that paperwork is considered a tax return, and only a revenue officer is allowed to ask for it, and an ATF officer can. If you can't provide that paperwork, well, they might not arrest you. They might say, hey, you got to take that brace off. They might say you need to turn it over to us. They might not arrest you, but you could definitely get into some legal trouble. I can definitely see where that is the big trap of this amnesty, whether people are ignorant of the law or not. I don't think they're going to try to ensnare people in the amnesty process. They're just going to try to get people that don't register them by going to local ranges, seeing who's firing these, and saying, hey, I'm an ATF officer. I need to see if that is registered. Oh, you don't have the paperwork? Gonna hand that gun over to me. If you don't want to, we can do this the hard way and I'll arrest you. Which, by the way, as I said, I support your right to do so. I just think it's really important to understand the legal ramifications. Now, maybe you own one of these, you don't plan on registering it through this amnesty, but you're just never gonna take it out again. And that's perfectly fine. You just have to know what these ramifications are of your decisions. But understand, here at the Texas Gun Vault, I support you 100% in whatever you decide to do. I just say, whatever you decide to do, be informed on that choice. And then lastly, we have something else. All tax stamps are free if you have the courage. And as I said, I have known people that have owned NFA items and they were completely ignorant of the NFA. They had shotguns with sawed-off barrels, or they had built what they thought was an AR-15 that was legal, and it really had a 14.5-inch barrel, and the muzzle device was not pinned and welded. Now, I did my due diligence and told them what the law was, but as far as I know, they've never had any issues. I've never seen an ATF agent at the range, and when I go to the range and shoot a gun like this, or a real SBR or a silencer, I've never had anybody ask me for my paperwork. I am prepared, I always have a copy of it with me, but I've never had that issue, and I don't know anyone else that has. Now, I do know there are stories out there of people who have, but they're very few and far between. As I said, this is very voluntary compliance. That's how the NFA kind of stays around. But hopefully, if more people have to deal with the shenanigans of the ATF and all the paperwork and all the taxes, we might be able to get this overturned, so it might be a good thing in the long run, especially in a post-Supreme Court Bruin decision world. So that's what I think about all these, but let's see what you guys had to say with the top-rated comments of the week. And with the top-rated comment of the week, we have Wolf Hunter's Armory, who says, I'm not registering anything. If they don't know about it, I never had it. I work for a gun store, and the only thing on the background check they get to see is if I'm attempting to buy a pistol or a long gun. They would have to track down every shop I have ever bought from and find 4473s with my name on them to know what I have. Happy hunting. And I completely understand where he's coming from, because when it comes to the ATF, most people don't know, but those 4473s have to remain in the possession of the FFL until they go out of business, or after 20 years when they can destroy them. But if the FFL goes out of business, well, they have to turn over all those records to the ATF. And trust me, they're digitizing them. So they might actually be able to find out what you have, especially if you bought from FFLs that are no longer in business. Now, I only got into guns probably about 12 years ago. So pretty much every gun that I've ever bought from an FFL is still out there when it comes to the paperwork. So if those gun stores are still in business, well, they still have it. Maybe they'll destroy them after 20 years, I can hope, but pretty much every gun that I've ever bought through an FFL, there's paperwork out there. If they've gone out of business, the ATF has record of it. And trust me, as I said, they are going to digitize it and have it in one big database. Even though the law says they can't do that, we all know the government doesn't care about the law. But I understand his sentiment, and the task of tracking down all that stuff is monumental, and I don't think the ATF has the manpower to do that. Then we have Stevo545 who says, so from what I've heard so far from some decent 2A attorneys that you will not be able to just throw a stock and a foregrip to make these an actual SBR. The reason why the ATF is requesting pics with the brace is, besides the registration, to see that it does in fact have a pistol brace. They were of the opinion that standard SBRs will be charged a tax stamp as usual. It makes no sense, but I believe it will probably be a rule, and I will not do anything about it until it's beaten in court. Thanks to Bruin and the EPA case, I don't see how this rule can hold any water. And from there, it should weaken the whole NFA to the point of dissolution. Well, I definitely agree with the points when it comes to the future of the NFA. I think the days of the NFA as it is today are numbered. But when it comes to the amnesty, I have to look at history. There have been times where they've opened the registry in the past for things like machine guns. In fact, people with machine guns that had serial numbers that were scratched out were still allowed to be registered. Every amnesty we've had, they haven't pulled any of these shenanigans. And there's been a number of them for a number of different things. Even things like those street sweeper shotguns in the 1990s. So I have no reason to believe that this amnesty isn't going to be legitimate. And if you submit an amnesty registration, all they want to know is that the gun is registered, and in the future they'll be able to ask for that $200 tax stamp on the transfer of this particular firearm to somebody else. I really think that's the main goal. They don't really honestly care about whether it meets the criteria of an SBR or not. I don't really personally think that's the trap. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I also think some of these Second Amendment attorneys are going a little bit too far and giving the ATF a little bit too much credit when it comes to their competency. But that's just my personal opinion, but we have to wait and see. But I definitely can see it going either way. Then we have DC who says, I think for pistol builds in the future, I'd prefer to just leave the buffer tube bare and use sling tension to compensate for a lack of a stock. Then have the choice to leave it like that or jump through all the hoops to wait for a tax stamp. They've been going after braces for a long time and are liable to eventually succeed. So having one is just waiting to become a felon or waiting to have to remove it, wasting the money spent on it. If it does become a crime and a person decides to disregard that law, that person might as well use a real stock in the first place. That's not really an attempt at safety, saying I'd be interested in that so much as pointing out the pointlessness of firearm regulation. The NFA has been BS for decades in the first place. It was an ineffective attempt to fight a style of crime that no longer exists. Early gangsters would buy shotguns and rifles, then cut them down for niche applications such as walking into a bank with a whippet gun for the psychological edge of surprising someone. Obviously, these people wouldn't follow those laws anyway. The only advantage to the rifle, pistol, or other is that a lot of states prohibit carrying long guns, and having a loaded rifle outside of a locked container in one's car is legally defined as concealed carry. If it's technically federally classified as a handgun, it's not a concern for people in those states. If states didn't make these rules up, that only advantage would be gone. And once again, we're talking about what the state laws are. That's where I think the real trouble of this is going to be. There's a lot of people that are completely ignorant of federal law and state law, and I don't want to see these people get in trouble. I don't think they're necessarily going to go after them and try to ensnare them. They're just going to try to get these people in these states to relinquish their property. And that's just my personal opinion, but I also think this is where this could be fought, because this could change people's opinions. A lot of people that might be fence sitters for gun control will go, this isn't right, and maybe something will actually get done. Then we have Razor JB who says, wish we could see the future and see how many people say one thing and do another. That's usually the case. Yeah, and even though a lot of people on this poll said they're not going to register, I have a feeling that a majority of people will. Just because most people that are law-abiding gun owners follow the law. After all, they're law-abiding gun owners. They're not going to like it, but they're going to follow the law. I know that's what I would do, but I'm still going to fight tooth and nail to try to get the law and the regulation repealed through other means such as the legislature or the courts. Then we have Bauki Baba. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I had an AK pistol and put a brace on it because I was told by the AFT that it was legal to do so and there was no wrong way to shoot a pistol. Then whoever decides these things went through hormone therapy and changed the rule, not a law, and said, "Das ist verboten." I did not like how loud it was and sold it to a guy moving to Idaho. Same with the Mossberg Shockwave. Braced it because the Gestapo said we could. Ergonomics sucked, so I sold it to buy a real shotgun. And yeah, when it comes to these little pistols, they're not as nice as a real rifle. These braces do not work very well as stocks. But man, do you avoid all that ATF paperwork. You know how to make the ATF and the NFA actually not have to deal with stuff like this? Process the forms in a reasonable amount of time. If you could go to your gun store and you lived in a state where NFA items are allowed and you could buy a gun like this with a stock and only have to wait about a week to a week and a half and still pay your $200 tax stamp, well, I don't think this would really be an issue. People would go, I can wait a week, I can wait 2 weeks, but when you have to wait almost a year and then pay $200, well, I think that's over the top and infuriates a lot of people, so they're always looking for those workarounds. But if they were actually efficient at their job at the NFA branch, well, this wouldn't be an issue because people would probably go, you know, I don't want to pay $200, but I only have to wait a week to 2 weeks to get that stamp and then go pick up the gun. I could deal with that. Then we have SIG P227 SAS EDC, who says, assuming that the firearm was originally a pistol, the resulting firearm with an attached shoulder stock is not an NFA firearm if it has a barrel of 16 inches or more in length. ATF ruling 2011-4. Yes, so if your barrel length is over 16 inches and the firearm is over, I believe it's 24 inches, you can put a stock on it, or if it was a pistol, I don't know. It falls into this weird category of firearm, but those are really, honestly, kind of rare. So what we're really talking about here are guns like this, with barrel lengths under 16 inches that are under 24 inches in overall length. You guys know what I'm saying, but there is kind of a workaround. It's kind of like those Mossberg Shockwaves. They're firearms, they're not short-barreled shotguns. Yeah, but those are even more impractical than these braced pistols. And then finally we have Joe Morgan. I'm pro free tax stamp, but we really cannot allow them to do this. And I think I agree with that. I'd take a free tax stamp on this, but I already own a whole bunch of other tax stamps and SBRs. But we definitely do need to fight it. If it's the way it goes, I'm going to follow the law, try to get my free tax stamps, but I will still be donating to like the GOA and the Second Amendment Foundation, trying to fight this in court. I'm contacting my representatives saying, you need to stop this. You need to rein in the ATF. But that's how we do it here in a civil society. You are free to disagree with my methodology, and whatever you decide, I fully support you. All I ask is that you are informed and understand the ramifications of your choices. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. It's kind of enlightening. It was not the results I was expecting, especially in the large numbers of people who said they won't register anything at all. But you know, that's kind of a way Americans are. It's kind of our culture. We don't like to be told what to do, even though we live in a culture full of laws. Well, we all break laws every single day, from traffic laws. I'm sure that some of us like to roll through stop signs or probably speed. We break the law all the time. And gun laws are no different. And when you have so few people enforcing gun laws and tens of millions of people with guns, a lot of stuff is going to slip through the cracks. It's not enforceable. But I think a lot of people are just going to want to remain in compliance and follow the law. But as I said, I support you in whatever decision you make, just be informed. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I look forward to seeing what you guys say in the discussion in the comments section below. And if you want to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I'll also post a link in the description. Go over there, see what the poll is about, vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. So, what do you guys think? Did these results surprise you? I would love to know. So, as always, thanks for watching.